There was a peasant farmer in old Russia standing at the side of the road weeping profusely, and as he stood there, the Tsar happened to pass by in his royal coach. The Tsar saw the peasant, and when he noticed him weeping, he stopped his chariot to inquire what was wrong. The man tearfully explained that he had no land to farm, and that he and his family were starving. The Tsar, touched by this man's misfortune, pulled out a stake from his chariot and drove it into the ground. He then gave the peasant 3 more stakes and instructed him, "Walk as far as you wish, and then drive the stake into the ground. Turn, walk again as far as you wish, and then place the next stake into the ground as well. And finally, turn again and walk as far as you'd like before placing the last stake into the ground. The land between the 4 stakes will be yours as a gift from me, the Tsar." And the man was overcome with joy and eagerly began to walk. And after some time he stopped and prepared to plant the stake into the ground. He was about to drive it in the ground when he paused and thought to himself, "Why should I stop here? I can have so much more land." So he continued to walk. And after some time he stopped again and prepared to plant the stake into the ground. He was about to drive it in when once again he paused and thought, "Why should I stop here? I can have so much more." So he continued to walk. And as the story goes, he never stopped walking. The message of this story is clear. We have so much potential in our lives, but only by transforming the limitless possibilities into something real can we ever accomplish anything. Only by giving up the limitless can we attain something meaningful. And Parshas Pekudei opens up by stating that Bezalel built the Mishkan, the tabernacle, according to the exact instructions that Hashem gave Moshe. And Rashi, quoting the Gemara, describes the debate that took place between Moshe and Bezalel regarding the proper way to construct the Mishkan. Moshe believed it best to first create the kelim, the utensils that we would use to serve Hashem, before creating the Mishkan, which is the place which would hold them. Bezalel, however, thought it best to first create the actual structure of the Mishkan, and only then construct the inner content, the kelim. So what's the meaning behind this debate? Because at first glance, it would seem that Bezalel's position is more intuitive. It's natural to first create the container before filling it up with substance. The Gemara indeed tells us that after hearing Bezalel's argument, Moshe agreed that this was in fact the correct method. Therefore, when Bezalel built the Mishkan, he first constructed the outer structure and only afterwards built the inner content, the kelim. If, however, this is the obvious approach, then why did Moshe initially reason that they should do the opposite? And what's even more striking is the fact that the Pasuk states that Bezalel built the Mishkan according to the exact instructions that Hashem gave Moshe. And if these were in fact Moshe's initial instructions, why did he initially disagree with Bezalel? So in order to understand this conundrum, we have to first analyze the fundamental topics of potential and actualizing potential. As the Maharal and others explain, there's an important relationship between the spiritual concepts of potential and actual. Potential is endless, it's multipotent, it's everything and anything. It has no boundaries, no borders, no limitations. Something real and actual, on the other hand, is restricted. It has borders, and it's limited only to what it is. Potential might be endless, but it's not real. What's real might be limited, but it's taken on true existence. And our lives are filled with experiences of both potential and actualized potential. So let's explore a few manifestations of these ideas in order to better understand this root concept. The prime illustration of the concept of potential and reality lies in our relationship with time. When you wake up each morning, the day holds infinite potential. You have the time to do anything, go anywhere, meet anyone, but that's only potential, because in reality, you haven't done anything yet. And in reality, you can't do everything, you can only do something. And on the other hand, every night when you go to sleep, the potential of that day is completely gone. There's no time left. The only thing that remains is that which you made real from the time you were given. What you accomplished, what you became from that day. The sadness of this moment is that the potential is gone. The day is over. But the joy is everything that you've accomplished, everything you've made real. And the same paradigm applies to life itself. At the beginning of life, you have infinite potential. You can become anything, learn anything, meet anyone. Your whole life is ahead of you, but it's fully potential. This is not yet real. All that exists are the possibilities for what you can choose to become, and therefore doesn't yet have any lasting meaning. Only the potential that we actualize becomes eternal. At the end of our lives, we're out of time, we're out of potential. But we have all the accomplishments that we spent a life building. Consequently, there's a mixture of feelings at this point in time. On the one hand, we feel sadness when we think about how our potential is gone, our time is up. But on the other hand, we feel tremendous joy when we think about all that we've accomplished. We're proud that we've taken the time we were given to build ourselves, to make our potential real. And this principle of potential and actual is the key to understanding the debate between Moshe and Bezalel. Because in fact, the deeper truth is that there wasn't really a fundamental debate to begin with, merely a difference in focus. Moshe was focused on the potential destination outcome. The goal of creating the Mishkan was to house the Kalim so that we could serve Hashem. However, this was merely potential, it was a vision, a destination. Bezalel was focused on the practical and how to actualize this potential. In order to have the Kalim, we first have to create the Mishkan to house them. And there's an additional distinction as well. Moshe was focused on the spiritual root, while Bezalel was focused on the physical, the tafel, the secondary, which would enable the spiritual. The spiritual always represents potential. The spiritual is boundless, it's infinite, multipotent. The physical always represents the actual. The physical is bounded, it's finite and limited. The Kalim represent the spiritual essence, the Ikar, that which carries infinite potential. The Mishkan represents the physical. It's the tafels, the makom, which enables the Kalim to fulfill their purpose. Essentially, Moshe and Bezalel were debating the best way to build a link between the physical and spiritual, the physical world and the spiritual world, the Mishkan and the Kalim. Moshe argued that they should begin with the spiritual, the potential, which is the Kalim, and then work their way down to the physical, which is the Mishkan. After all, in every creative process, the spiritual and potential comes first, and the physical product comes after. But this, however, was no ordinary creative process. When Hashem created the world, the spiritual came first, and the physical emanated from that infinite spiritual root. But when building the Mishkan, we weren't expressing the infinite spiritual root into the physical. On the contrary, we were connecting the expressed physical world back to its infinite root. Therefore, since we were building from the physical to the spiritual, the physical makom, the Mishkan, had to come first, and only afterwards could the spiritual and potential, the Kalim, become expressed. Moshe acknowledged that Bezalel was correct, and that his original perspective came only from the normal creative process, but that Bezalel's view was the actual Ratzon Hashem in this unique circumstance. And this is why the Pasuk says that Bezalel acted exactly according to the instructions that Hashem gave Moshe, because in truth, this was the intended plan. And in truth, there are strengths and weaknesses to both potential and actual. Because potential is beautiful, majestic, and infinitely precious. We all understand the value of potential. However, the weakness of potential is that it's just that, potential. It's not real. It's merely theoretical. The greatness of something that has been actualized is that it's tangible and real. The weakness, though, is that it's only that, nothing more. A finished project is a form of actualized potential. It's beautiful in that it's real, but it's still important to realize that it's limited to what it is. It could have been anything else. There were endless possibilities. However, it's now the specific and unique form that the artist chose to create. And the ultimate challenge in life is limiting infinite potential for the ability to create something real. Imagine if a wealthy and generous person offered you any amount of money in the world. Just quote me a number and I'll give it to you, he says. So your mind goes racing as you think about the amount of money you can request. $10,000? $1 million? Let's say you finally decide to say $5 million and he hands over the money. The pleasure of that decision is that you now have $5 million. You're $5 million richer. But the pain is that you don't get a single dollar more. You could have said $6 million, or $500 million, or $7 trillion. The list of potential numbers is never ending. However, much like the farmer in our introductory story, if you can't sacrifice potential for actual, you'll end up with nothing. And this struggle is a genuinely difficult struggle. It pervades all areas of life. You'll often hear people say, why marry this person? Perhaps the next one who comes along will be better. And why take this business offer? Maybe the next one will be even better. But when we fall prey to this line of thinking, we end up with nothing. And this is our challenge. We like to fantasize about perfect futures, ideal living conditions, and ultimate relationships. However, sometimes we get so caught up in dreaming about a better life that we don't end up living it. This is a life trapped in potential without ever making that potential a reality. Potential is beautiful, but only in as much as we utilize it, only in how we bring it to fruition. We have to be willing to start with what we have, where we are, and work our way from there. May we be inspired to actualize our potential to the fullest extent possible, trying our best to choose the real over the fantasy.